Good afternoon, everybody, or I know it's morning for our friends in Australia and somewhere in between for those in the UK, and I know we've got Sweden and a few other places, so thanks everybody for being here. I appreciate it as always. I typed in a little blurb on my cover screen here while we were waiting. Be sure to hang till the end today because we're going to be drawing a name. Dave's going to do that randomly for a free entry to our conference next month. And if you've already signed up, then you'll get the free entry for the June conference. So with that, today we are going to talk about editing some travel photos. And since we just did a trip out to the Southwest, we drove from Tennessee to Sedona, Arizona. And part of it was along Route 66, which we had never done before, which led to the upcoming workshops that we now have scheduled for later this year that are both full. I'm using images all from this Route 66 portion of our trip, and these were all taken with my brand new iPhone 14 Plus Max, whatever. I am really, really impressed with the quality of the photos with this iPhone. I think I used that more than my camera on this trip, other than when we were like out of Africa and I was shooting with my long lens. But this camera is pretty amazing. Well, all three cameras, I guess, in the phone. So what I'm going to do today is kind of show you, I'm doing less projects, but they're a little more involved. And as always, it's about inspiration. So even if you don't have the same types of images, although if you get the notes, you get these images to practice with as well. It's about inspiring you to take some images that, like this one I have up right now. This was in Oklahoma, and it's a really cool museum with lots of outdoor things, and it wasn't open because it was Thanksgiving Day, so we didn't get to see the inside stuff yet. But it was very cool, but it's kind of like, all right, it's a very kind of boring photo because it was so foggy. And I'm going to show you my edit of it. And then when I'm done, I'm going to show you one that Dave did, which is pretty cool too. I'm not going to do his, but I'll show you his version because he had a very similar shot. Okay, so the first thing I want to do with this one is duplicate my background layer because I want to do some straightening, and we're going to straighten up these windmills here. So first I'm going to go to my edit, transform, and go to skew. And then I'm going to pull out my sides. And I like using the skew because I can do this two sides independently. I did end up actually doing them about the same on each side. And if you check the numbers up here, I'm replicating it because I'm looking at the number that I wrote down. It was at about 5.1, so somewhere about there. And then I moved this side because I wasn't sure they needed to be the exact same on each side. So we're going to do about there, and that looks pretty good. And then we're going to click the check mark, and then I want to do just a little bit of cropping as well. And so we're going to click on here, and I'm going to come down a little bit at the top here. And I wanted to come in, so I got rid of the little corner of that building there. And come in just a teeny bit there. And up a little bit on the bottom. We don't need all that blank grass. All right, so we're going to use that as our image. So of course all of these are straight from the camera. I've done no editing, so I'm going to run this through the camera raw filter. So we're going to go to our filter, camera raw filter, and of course you could, if you brought them into Lightroom, you could edit there as well. As always, there's more than one way to do everything, but I'm going to use this filter if it decides to open. That doesn't usually take so long, so not sure what's going on. Kevin. No, my Photoshop froze. Right. There we go. Alrighty. Well, All right, we don't need that to be zoomed in. So these are my sliders. And I did have a question while we were waiting. In the notes, I have the settings that I used here. And one of them has, under contrast, it's a fraction. And actually, it's not a 0.16, it's a 1/6. So I guess I put a fraction in there that I shouldn't have. So sorry about that. So it really should be 16. So it isn't a fractional number. And this one came back 43. And my shadows are at 11, 12, somewhere around there. And then a little bit of texture and a little bit of clarity. And that looks pretty good. So we're going to say, okay. Oh, filter screen got a little weird today, which is weird. Never seen it do that before. So they're pretty kind of basic. Here's my before. There's my after. So I've got a little more contrast in the trees. They're not quite so faded out. A little better color. And I know, or I decided when I started this project, I knew I was going to go black and white. So that's why I'm not too worried about the color. So from here, I'm going to open my Nik panel, and I'm going to use Silver Effects Pro because I really like that. And Marjorie said, yes, using a smart object would allow you to return to the camera settings in the future. That is correct. I never get in the habit of using smart objects, but that is a good point. And if you do use them, that's a good reason why, because you can come back in to that filter and then change things further down the line. So I've got my Nik Silver Effects. I'm going to go into the Vintage collection, and I used this antique plate that I started with. And then over here in the right-hand column is our adjustments we can do. And I came down to this section. I wanted to change the color from 21 to 20 so it wasn't quite so yellow. And I changed the vignette size. I don't want it to be encroached quite so much in the image. I wanted the edges to fade out, but not completely. So we're going to apply that one. So you could have the project be done at this point, but of course, you know, I'm always, but what else can I do? So first I'm going to bring in one of my grunge brush stroke overlays. These also come as brushes, but I'm going to use the PNG version just to make it easier for right now. And I'm going to stretch this to cover my screen. And then we're going to change this to linear burn. So we're going to change our blending mode to linear burn and bring back the opacity to about 34, 35%. So it's just giving it a little more grunge, a little bit of a border. And again, you could be done at this point, but we're going to do one more thing. So I'm going to bring in a gradient, which is out of one of my gradient sets, the Tropical Treats set. And most of you have probably seen me before, and you know I work with two monitors, and that's why I'm dragging in these from my second monitor, because it just makes it much quicker when I'm doing these types of projects. And we're going to cover that. And then we're going to change this to color burn and lower, excuse me, lower the opacity. to about 34%. And I thought after I was looking at this that, the kind of tannish portion of this gradient is kind of up here in the middle, and I'd kind of like the blue to come more down to the horizon. So we can go back to this layer and just click on the move tool. And I'm just going to zoom in so we can see the edges here. And then I'm going to hold my shift key and just bring down this texture so that it's longer down here to about 12 or so. So now my blend of the gradient is just lower in the picture. So now it looks more, like it's the actual sky. And then I also decided to bring this below the texture. And it's a subtle difference, but it lets the texture show a little bit more. What's that, dear? Thank you. Dave said it works well. So that's another way. You could also, instead of a gradient, if you didn't have these, you could use the bicolor filter in Color Effects Pro, which would be another way to create, a two-tone kind of color like that. So that's my version of this image, and I'm going to show you Dave's version, which is very different than mine. It's a very similar shot. It's not exactly the same. This is one he took, and he used some effects. I'm losing my voice today. Used some textures. That's like kind of the crinkly look in the background. But then he used some presets in Topaz to create his version. So lots of different ways, as always, that you can go with your particular images. It's just a matter of what you like. So mine is a little bit different, a little more subtle in the color. His is definitely stronger, but I also like that as well. So that's our first project. Hang on, I just got to grab some water. Thank you for all the nice comments, everybody. Awesome. All right, so that's those two. So we're not going to save that. We're going to close that one. So next up, we're going to do some combining of images. So let me open up the first one. What's that there? Yes, the windmills are part of one of the places we're going to stop on our workshop. So if you're interested in possibly going in the future, send me an email and I'll put you on a list for next year, because we're thinking about maybe doing a spring and a fall trip as well. So it was a really cool place. I can't wait to go back there when it's not starting to rain and cold and foggy, and it was a not very pleasant day out there. Got a little windy. So this one is actually at the same place. So you can see one of the windmills here. This is right next to where those were. So I'm going to also do a little bit of corrections in here. So this was, well, actually I did do some skewing already, but that doesn't look like I did. Well, I'm going to skew it then, because I know I did it, but I guess I didn't save that one. So let's duplicate our layer. Nobody's perfect. I can hear Dave going, sighing over there. So we're going to go to Edit, Transform, and we're going to skew this a little bit. And let's bring this out and this out. And so we're going to get that about like that. And these fences they had here and there around this place were cool. These are all like tractor seats and blades from, when they're cutting crops and stuff, which were really pretty cool. So we're going to start with that. And then I also, to edit, transform, and actually I didn't use that. I think I just stretched the top a little, because it really should look more like that. So we're going to go with that. So that's a little bit better. And this is actually straight. It's just the angle of the ground here makes it look crooked, because I tried to straighten it and I was like, nope, it looks better the way it was. So I'm going to add a car in here. So we're going to leave that one for a second. I'm going to open up this car image. And when I finish this, it's really not perfect as the way that the perspective are, but it's more about showing you the techniques than getting it perfect. So this was a car from a different place. It's in the shadow, so that's why it's kind of a bluish tint, and it was bright sunlight where the other one was very, foggy and overcast. But first I want to select the car because I'm going to put the car in the other one. So we're going to use under our selection tool. Why is my Photoshop being so weird today? I use the quick selection tool and then select subject. And it does a pretty good job. And it even selected the windows, which I thought was cool. So I did fine tune it a little bit. I'm going to zoom in so you can see where I needed to. It didn't quite grab all of the windshield wiper tips. So I'm going to hold, switch back. It's on my quick selection tool. Make my brush really tiny, which it is. And I'm going to just add to my selection here and over here. And make sure that door handle is all selected. And then it's selected a little bit too much up here. So I'm going to hold my Alt or Option on a Mac key and take away from the selection here. And then fine tune that a little bit. And we get that pretty good for now. And let's see. I think that works. Let's check the bottom. That looks pretty good. Got the tire. So what we want to do now is I want to delete the background. So right now we have the car selected. So I'm going to go up to select and inverse it. So now you see the marching ants around the background because we want to delete our background. First we have to unlock this layer so that it will make the background transparent. And then you can just hit your delete or backspace key. And now you have your selection. Control D to deselect it. If you want to save this, you can save it as a PNG, which I already have one saved. So I'm going to go back here and I'm going to bring in the one I already have saved because I finessed that one a little bit more. Yeah, I was surprised that it did that good a job with the windows. I see Jim commenting on that. So, like I said, something doesn't seem right when I finish this. I think my car is too big, but I'm going to kind of go with what I did before, just so you can kind of get an idea where I was at. Like I said, it's more about just giving you inspiration than being perfect with this particular one. All right, so we have that. Are you working with a pen or mouse? I am working with a mouse. I have a tablet and I have not used it in a long time, and it's very different than working with a mouse, and I'm just used to the mouse. So we've done that. I'm reading through notes, make sure I get everything. We've resized it. All right, so the first thing I want to do now is add a little bit of shadow below this car. Even though there's no real sunshine, you would still have some darker area under the car. So I'm going to add a blank layer between these two layers because I want it to be under the car. I'm going to grab a soft round brush. Just make it, maybe about there. Make my foreground color black. And make this much smaller. And I'm just going to, let's reduce the opacity too, even though I'll probably reduce it more, but just so it's not super dark. And I'm just going to do a little bit of shading under the car. Again. And because I'm working under the car is why you're only seeing what's extending out beyond it. And then I'm going to reduce the opacity of that layer even more. Just like that, just to give it a little bit of shadow under there. And then I also wanted to add something to tone down the windows because they wouldn't be that transparent. So let's add another blank layer. This time I'm going to use white. And I'll zoom in so you can see. And I'm just going to kind of paint with white. And I'm, again, working under the car, so it makes it easier. And then we will, let's see, blank. And I'm going to change, actually, I used gray instead of white, so let's redo that. Well, this will work. I'm going to change the opacity of that as well, because it wouldn't be that dark, but just so it has the look of a window in there. So we're going to go with that. And then I added a brightness and contrast layer. And I'm going to clip this to the car because I only want this change to affect the car and not everything else. So I'm going to hold my Alt key and in between the two layers, clip that so that this only affects there. And then I'm going to bring the brightness down a little. Poop. There we go. I just messed up all my panels. Jeez, it's one of those days today. That should be over there. I don't know why I did that. Okay. All right, we're going to make our brightness. Yeah, operator error, Dave says, definitely. And a little bit of contrast. Excuse me. And a tickle. Okay. So we've done that. Next, I want to add a hue and saturation layer, and I also want to clip that. Wait, I really messed up my panels here. Oh, I already did that one. Wait. Where'd all my stuff go? Jeez. I did it. I know I did it. I don't know what I did or how I did it, but I did it. I double-clicked something. All right, so we can get rid of that layer. And saturation. Jeez. So we're also going to clip that one. And we're going to change saturation to -35. Instead of the Alt, it would be Option. Lightness. I'm going to bring that back a little bit. And I changed the master. I'm going to change some of the individual colors. So reds. I'm changing saturations here. Got that way down. Cyans. I brought that one up a little bit. Because the car was blue, but it just had this overall color that I didn't really like because of the shade that it was in. And I also changed the hue on that one. Ooh, not that much. And let's see, magentas. Dave is chuckling at the comments, so yeah, I definitely mess up. Don't worry. Yeah, you usually see me just like zoom through these projects, but I don't know. Today, my brain has been working on the itinerary for our Route 66 trip for like 4 days straight. So yeah, some of you I know are online today, and it is a lot of work to plan a trip like that. So I'm trying to get I don't know what the heck did I do, because I really messed this up. I hate when my panel. Yeah, let me try that. Jeez. No, I know there's a way to redock it, and I just have to figure it out, but I can't do it. There we go. Well, we at least got that out there so you can see the whole image. And then I can scroll back. Okay. So now what I want to do is change the sky in this image. So I'm going to create a merged layer of all of these components, a merged or a stamped layer. And what that does is combine the layers without flattening it if I want to go back to them. And the way we do this, it's nicknamed the claw because you need lots of fingers to do it. On a PC, it's Control, Alt, Shift, and the letter E. On a Mac, that would be Command, Option, Shift, E. So now I have my image here. And what's that, dear? Yeah, all of the shortcuts can be found generally in Photoshop. And I know I've published a couple times a shortcut list for both PCs and Macs. I'll put that in the blog again this week. Let me make myself a note. Shortcut. Because it's a handy list to have if you don't really use a lot of shortcuts. And I don't use all of them because I could never remember as many that are on that list, but there are some that are just easy to use all the time, like Control-T for the transform and the merging and things like that. Control-Z, of course, for our undo. The Virginia, it's Control-Alt-Shift-E. I'll type it in here. Control plus Alt plus Shift plus E on a PC. On a Mac, it would be Command plus Option plus Shift plus E. Yes, and if you have the notes, it's in the notes as well. And let's see. Okay, sky replacement. So edit. Edit. Sky replacement. I'm just going to do it here in Photoshop. A lot of times I use Luminar when I'm editing and doing all of that, but we can do that right here in Photoshop too. So I am going to use, and actually it's this one, but I'll show you where it's from. The workspace needs to be saved and get it back the way it was. Okay, I may have done that, so, but I can get it back because I know I've done this before, and it just takes time to get it to like redock over there on the side. But thank you, Amy. All right, so you would click the drop down and go to the groups of skies, and I've imported a bunch of my own in here. And to import your own, you could add a folder first and name it, and then open the folder and drag in all of the ones you want, or use the plus sign, and you would select all the ones in that folder so that they'll go in this folder here. And which makes it handy that you can do more than one at a time. The one thing in Luminar, if you were doing it through this panel, you could only add one sky at a time, which could be very time consuming when you have as many as I do. And this is the one I used, which is from my Stormy Skies 2 set. So I'm going to use that one. And then I changed the scale of the sky a little bit because I wanted this cloud to kind of go around that peak. So I made the scale of the sky 125, like there. And because it's bigger, then I could move it a little without losing something on the side. If it were 100%, it would already be edge to edge. But I just kind of wanted that to frame that peak a little bit. And then we're going to say okay to accept that. Did I change anything else? No. Okay. And then with the Photoshop sky, I always have it bring in all the layers, so you can go in and tweak things as well. So it creates a folder or a group with everything that it contained in the doing that sky. So I'm just going to close that folder to save space. Yes, dear.
Yeah, backspace instead of
Control Alt Shift Backspace. Oh.
I'll fix it.
Okay. Sorry about that. Control Alt Shift. Oh, I guess I was thinking of something else. Yes, it is an E and not a backspace. Sorry about that, Ray. I will have to fix that. Okay. Trying to do too many things at one time sometimes. Alrighty. So now we have our new sky. So I'm going to make sure that layer is highlighted. So what I do next will be above that, because I'm going to go back into my silver effects, and I'm going to do a black and white. This time I'm going to go to the modern category, full dynamic smooth, number 16. And again, I could be done at this point, but knowing me, you know I won't be. So that gives us a really nice black and white. Again, I know the car is just not quite right, but it gives you an idea of the things you can do. But you do need to make sure things just kind of fit together. And then next, I decided I could have used one of the sepia settings in Silver Effects, but I decided to use a texture instead. And this is, of course, one of mine. This is from the Grunge 8 set, because you know I like my grungy textures. And this one I'm going to change the blending mode to soft light. And I left the opacity at 100%. It just kind of gave it like the stained edges, a little bit of texture in the sky, just give it that little subtle, aging to the photo. So that is that project. So let's close that. And yeah, Pat, I agree. She says, I think the black and white helped the truck look less flat as it was originally shot in the shade. Yeah, I was definitely having a problem with that, and that's one of the reasons I decided to go black and white with it. But I think I kind of was leaning that way even when I started. And we can close that one. All right, so the next one, we are going to, I'm going to show you the finished one. And then I'll show you how I did this. And this is a big composite of creating different, like word art, putting different pictures in each letter and clipping them together. And then I put a different picture in the background and I faded that one out a little. So I'm going to leave this open in case I run out of time. But I'm going to try and start this. So we're going to start with a blank layer. And I went with about an 11 by 14 background white. And we want to do regular sRGB and say OK. And I ended up cropping it later, but this is what we're going to start with. And then I'm going to start by putting in my type. So I'm going to go to my type tool. And the font I use, you want something that's really heavy and thick for this. So I went with this one, Alpha Slab 1. I put it at 175 point. And I want it to be black. And I'm just going to click here in the middle. And of course, because we're doing Route 66, I did Route 66. And then as soon as you click off of it, sometimes when you're typing, they kind of look oversized, but that's not really the size it is. And then I'm going to angle this type. So I'm going to click on this layer and then go to my Move tool. And if you put the cursor outside the corner, you can see that curved arrow kind of off the edge there. I'm just going to angle this. And that's why I went with that size, because I wanted it pretty close to the edges of the image. So I'm going to go with that. So now I want to clip an image, a different image to each letter. So what I did was I copied this word and then I masked out all the letters except one on each layer. This was how I did it. There probably is a simpler way to do it, but this worked for me. So we have Route 66, so I'm going to do a Control J to copy that. So that would be the O, the U, the T, the E, the 6, and the 6. So and then I went in and to keep my sanity, renamed each layer with the letter that I wanted it to be. So that way when I start entering things, I could tell where I needed to drop it. So I did that. So then I'm going to add a layer mask. Grab my brush, and I went with a harder brush because I'm going to work close between these different letters. Foreground color black, and I'm going to start masking in here. We can make that a little bit bigger. And I'm going to turn off everything except that one layer so you can see it happen. And make sure my brush is back to 100%. And then we can mask it. And then once we get away from that letter, I can make it bigger and just do that. So now we have just the R. So I'm going to turn on the next layer, add a layer mask, and do the same thing. And get rid of the R, which we would turn off that layer. That way you can make sure you didn't leave any little pieces. Turn that one on, turn that one off. Add a layer mask. And turn that one on, turn that one off. Highlight that one, add the layer mask. And this is our T. And layer mask E. So there's a little bit of prep in getting this one started, and patience, as Dave just said, and patience, which he does not have. And our layer mask. I think I grabbed a little of that, but that's okay. We'll make it work. And the last one, add our layer mask. Okay, so now we have all of our letters on individual layers. So now I'm going to start bringing in the picture I want in each one. So, and in the notes too, and I forgot to do this, when I first typed the word, let's turn them all on for a second. Sometimes you need to adjust letter spacing. This is actually not too bad. But if you want to adjust letter spacing, you would go into your character panel. And sometimes instead of metrics, try optical, and that will like make this a little closer and just kind of even out the spacing a little bit. In my type course, excuse me, I got such a tickle in my throat today. My type course that I released the first few modules last week, we get into all of that kind of stuff in very great detail. Okay, so let's bring in pictures. So let's see what I used on the first one. I brought in this Route 66 Museum. So I know I want that one to be in this first letter. So let's make this wider so I can see the letters on the side, maybe. Let's go that way. So I can actually see the letter over here now that we have the layer mask. So on the R, I want to bring in this image. And again, these are all from my cell phone. And I'm going to be rotating these and placing them and sizing them so that they fit the way I like in each letter. So I can't really see now where this fits, right? So I'm going to bring this temporarily below the letter and lower the opacity of the letter a little bit. And it doesn't have to be any exact number, just so you can see the image and where you want it to be. So you just kind of play around till you get it the way you think you like it. And you can always adjust this more later. Say, okay. So then I want to put that back on top of the letter. Make my letter back to 100%. And then you want to now clip the picture to that letter to take on the shape of the letter. Just like we were clipping the layers before, if you hold the Alt or Option key, put the cursor between the layers, and do that. So now your picture is only in that letter. Now we would do the same thing with the next one. Again, bring this down, rotate it over here. And I'm going to bring it below my letter so I can see better. And make sure that you're on the right layer because it's very easy to keeps wanting to grab the other layer. That's not the layer we're on. Sometimes I found it easier. When I was doing this before, I kept doing that. I just turned off all the other layers because I kept wanting to move that instead of the one that I'm really on. Let's put that underneath. Oh, Lordy.
Slow down.
I know. Dave says, slow down. Because I do. I start getting in a hurry. And let's lower the opacity of that so I can see. And see, the thing is, I'm grabbing up here, but I'm on the wrong layer. I need to be on the photo. Why does it keep moving to that? Wait. Let's turn these two off as well. I am on that. All right, this is getting annoying. So when that doesn't work right, another way to make something move is to use the arrow keys on your keyboard. So I'm just arrowing left so it will move over there. And I'm going to move it down a little bit. And we're going to go with that. So, I don't think so. It's the way I always work, and it doesn't normally do that, but where do I have it selected? Oh, up here. Alrighty then. Well, I guess I did, and I didn't realize I did. There you go. Thank you. Thank you, Karen. Thank Bill. So, you know, sometimes you just don't even notice things. Alrighty, so now we have that on top. We're going to do our clipping and change that back. That is at 100%. Okay, so we should have those two done now. So let's go to our view, and we're going to bring in this one. This is, for those of you who are old enough to know, this is Roger Miller, who was born in Eric, Texas, which is where we took this. A little tiny town. Where'd my other picture go? Oh, I know what happened. Because I brought this one in and I wasn't on the right layer. It came in between my other picture. So that's what happened there. So I gotta reclip this one. So when you want to bring in the image, make sure you're on that layer first, so that way it'll or the view, and then the picture will come in above it. And then I'm gonna bring it below it so I can see. No, you can't do an action for this, I don't think. Yeah, Dave said, can I do an action? I'm like, I don't think that would work too well. So then we'll bring that back down. Lordy. I keep messing up today. Good grief. All right. R-O-U. And then like this, I think it's up a little too high, so I can still, on that picture, I can still bring that down. I just didn't want to bring it too low because then the top of the building looked like we were missing something. So We can always adjust sizing and maybe move it that way. I don't want to cut off his nose. All right, now we're on the T layer. So we're have that one highlighted. I'm going to bring in one of those windmills. I thought that would fit good in the middle of the T. Let's angle it. I have to keep my picture big enough to cover the whole thing. Again, if you, and just even if things are working properly, you can use those arrow keys to just nudge it a pixel at a time. It sometimes makes it easier than trying to drag the whole thing. And then do a remote clip. There you go. All right, next one. We're going to bring in the Wigwam Motel. And these cars are parked out here all the time. We're actually waiting for a call back to try and get some reservations to stay there on our trip this fall. A lot of these places close like January, kind of slow season. So, and this one I know I'm going to move around a little bit more. So let's clip it. And I'm going to zoom in so I can see that letter. And move it kind of like that. And next one. Two more. And we've got standing on the corner in Winslow, Arizona. That corner, that is the corner, and there is the sign. And it's funny because this whole building, this is nothing but just a facade. It's not a real building. You can walk around behind it. It's only like a few feet thick. And they do have the flatbed Ford parked out here. You can see it reflected in the window. And there's a second statue of, who was the second one now? I forgot. The guy who wrote the song, maybe? I forget now. But there are two statues that you can take pictures with, which there was lots of people doing that, including us. Dave got some cool pictures down the block as well, because there's lots of neat stuff around there.
Jackson Brown, yes.
Yes, Jackson Brown. Because he actually wrote the song, even though the Eagles released it. Yes. All right, so our last one, let's move this one over. We're going to bring in our little car. This is at the, kind of at the end of the Petrified Forest National Park. And it's got a Route 66 thing down in the ground in front of it, which was neat. And I'm gonna do that and kind of like that. So there you have all of our cool letters. So now I want to bring in my background image, which is going to be the Blue Swallow Motel. And it's just neat, you know, somebody said it's a fun idea. This is a great thing. It could be for anywhere. It doesn't have to necessarily be there. It's like kind of the effect of the old classic postcards that you see with the big letters. And you could, you know, curve these letters, and I'm going to do a narrow stroke in drop shadow, but you could do, if you like look up some of the old style postcards, the letters are spaced farther apart with a really thick, almost 3D look to them. Yeah, there's a lot of really cool stuff you can do. And then this one, I lowered the opacity because I didn't want it to be quite that heavy. So I wanted it to be a little bit more washed out, which that's another reason to have a white layer underneath. So that way you can lower the opacity without it becoming transparent. Then now I want to add some layer effects to the letters so that they have that outline and a little bit of a drop shadow. So I'm going to click on my first letter layer and double click in the blank area of the layer. And that will open up your layer styles panel. So I'm going to use, let me grab my notes. I started with a stroke. And once you click the checkbox, make sure you've actually clicked the whole row so that you get the proper adjustments in here. And I went with 12 pixels. And centered means half of it is on the letter and half of it is outside of the letter. And that worked well for this one. I left the opacity at about 80%, color black. And then next I did the drop shadow, normal, color black, opacity 46, angle, I changed to 59. Usually I like to do from the upper left, but the way the letters are tipped, I like that better. And then it's remembering what I did last. So the distance 25, spread 27, and size 27. And that controls the effect around the letters here, how far away it is, how sharp it is, and how much, it spreads out from the letters. So once we have one that we like, we can say, okay. And I don't like that white gap up there, so I would go back to that picture and using the arrow key, just arrow it up so I don't have that sky showing there. Once you have your effect done, you don't have to redo that on each one. You can right-click in the blank area, copy your layer style, and then click on each of these letters. I'm going to hold the control key, whoops, not that one. Hold my alt key so I can just select, nope, not that one either. What the heck? Try the shift key. Yeah, that's the one. No, because I don't want to do them all. All right, I'm just going to, this is not my day. I'm just going to right click on this one and go paste layer style. Where did it go? See, I didn't click in the blank area. That's why. So we can paste the layer style. And I'm just going to do it to each one because I'm having a day today, apparently. Paste the layer style. Paste the layer style. Paste the layer style. Or hold the alt. Yeah, it should. Yeah, that's true. You could hold and drag them like you do with the masks, and then paste the layer style. But we got it. They're all there now. Okay, and there you have it. And then I decided to crop this a bit, and I cropped it to a 4:6 ratio, like a typical postcard. And I'm going to zoom out if I can. Let's see, I think that actually works. Let's move it up just a little bit. And say, okay. Hold the alt key, drag the effect. Yeah, same way you can copy a mask. That's true. Thank you, Pat. And there we have it. And I actually got through all of the projects. I thought it would take even longer to do this one. Ray asked, does it matter if you unlock the background layer or keep it locked? If it's not locked, it doesn't affect any background layers. In this case, it doesn't matter because I want that to just stay there. You could unlock it. It doesn't really matter because I'm not moving it. Just locking it's going to not let you move it by accident. So you could definitely do that. Let's see, any other questions? You don't want to put all, let's see. You don't want to put all of these layers in a group as it would add the effects to the photo layers too. Correct. So I didn't want to group all of the layers. I just want the photo clipped to that one layer, not like the sky that made that whole folder group together. And I think that is it. Did you pick a name yet, dear? See? What's up? Raymond Easley, you have won an entry to our conference next month. I will send you an email. And if you are already registered, I will then put you on the list for June. And if you haven't yet gotten the notes, they are available on sale for $6.50 until next Tuesday. And then the regular price is now $10. I did have to raise prices at the beginning of the year because everything in the world goes up, all the web posting, and it's not cheap to run a website and all the Zoom and everything else. So I have a question. What's that, dear? Yes, this is recorded. It will be on my YouTube channel at least by tomorrow. Sometimes I manage to get them up the same night. So yes, and because you're here, you'll automatically get an email from the Zoom system tomorrow, and I'll have the link in there. And then I also post it in tomorrow's blog and Sunday's blog. I usually post it a few times. Sandy said, how long is the Route 66 trip? It is, including the first day with dinner, 9 days, and we're on the road for 8 days, and we're covering a ton of stuff. Very long days. I think if we do it again next year, which I'm hoping we will, we're planning on, I may add even another day or two, because there's just so many cool things that, combined with some traveling and in between, that, I just want there to be even more stuff in there. So thank you, Helen. I'm glad you enjoyed it. It is a challenging exercise, and I was just having a day. But I guess I didn't practice enough like I usually do because I've been busy with that itinerary. But anyway, thank you all for being here. As always, I greatly appreciate you all. And if you think of any questions later, always feel free to contact me, email me, and I will talk to you all really soon. Thank you.